Welcome to Bardo. You're listening to the 100 podcast, a show about CW sci-fi series, The 100. I'm Daniel Prime.
Hallowed be his name. And I'm Olga, the One Crew Warrior. Today we're discussing Season 7, Episode 7, entitled The Queen's Gambit.
Alrighty.
Welcome to the Queen's Gambit dance. That's what Emori was actually throwing. It was a giant dance party.
It did not go well for her.
No.
All right.
Let's do the stab. Let's do the stab.
Oh, Jesus. All right, guys. So this is our first reactions to 707. A few quick notes before we get into this. Basically, for these first reaction videos we do every week, right after the episodes air, we just go, oh, whoa, what did you think of that? And then we just kind of blurt our thoughts out right after we see it. Then on Mondays, we do our audio podcasts where we rewatch the episode, we take your feedback, we talk about that. And on that note, this past Monday, we did not do one for 706 because
I didn't feel good.
Olga,
I'm sorry.
Yes, and it's just been quite a week for us.
Yeah.
But we are gonna hope to include at least some 706 feedback in the upcoming 707 podcast. Especially, I feel like there's gonna be things that probably are still relevant, especially like about choices that like Gabriel or Echo made or anything on the car.
Oh yeah, those things are freaking relevant.
Yeah.
Gabriel.
Yes.
And the fact that we didn't see the Clark crew.
Yeah.
Until the very last minutes.
Yeah. All right. All that said.
Yeah.
What did we think of 707?
First of all, really proud of Lindsay Morgan. This is her directorial debut.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I didn't, because they've been plugging it on Twitter today like crazy. Well done, well deserved. So in that sense, like in the moments where I was able to like draw myself out of the story, I'd be like, oh, good job, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Like you're pulling this off.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I like that.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting. So there's very few things that I didn't enjoy about this episode. I think that they did another really solid episode as far as character stuff. I do think it's funny to me how, especially from my point of view, where it's like the push and pull of, is there too much plot? Is it not enough plot? Is it like, because we had these episodes in a row, like a bunch in a row that were like, oh my God, so much mythology, so much. And then these last two, I really enjoyed all the character stuff, but it also feels like now the show's dragging a little bit. And like because even the fact that like we ended this episode to me with honestly still not that much different on Sanctum, yes, they finally took control, but I was like expecting maybe there were gonna be like an actual battle, or like maybe there would be actually like it's just now they're gonna go to jail. I mean, like I'm not saying like but that being said, I loved everything with Murphy. I really enjoyed Maury in this episode. I think Sheidheda is getting better and better, which is hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just one of those things where we've been talking about villains a lot. And we were both kind of like, well, the 100 has been missing a type of villain. Yeah. Like a straight up bad guy who is intimidating. Yeah. And like McCreary, as you said, is a bad guy.
He's a psycho, but he was kind of just like, rah, right?
I'm bad.
Yeah.
Graveyard McCreary. Yeah. Like he's just like kind of evil for the sake of evil. Yeah. And oh my God, a bad guy looking for power. There's nothing more like cliched in the list of motivations for villains. But Sheidheda this season is like chewing the scenery and chewing this dialogue in a way that even though it's like not necessarily interesting motivation, I'm really enjoying it.
Well, and I think that they got the closest they ever have to giving him interesting motivation in this episode, actually, which we can talk about in a second. But I mean, I think it's really popular right now to be like, oh, what makes a great villain is like, you have to like understand where they come from and understand who they are and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like the Joker is one of the best villains, and it's because we don't understand him. And people loved Darth Vader and New Hope before they knew anything about him because he was just cool and badass and scary. And so I think the problem with Sheidheda last year was that he wasn't cool.
No, and he was freaking goofy.
Yeah, he was goofy. They were trying to be cool, and it just wasn't working. Now you have an actually cool actor, and you're writing him to be both a physical and mental threat, even while being the one in jail.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely enjoyable. Am I going to necessarily rank him like super, like, I still don't think he's as interesting as something like Dante or Pike or something, but I still, like, I definitely enjoy watching him now.
To me, he's a more interesting, okay, maybe not more interesting. Yeah. He is a more, like, fun to watch antagonist than, like, Anders has been so far.
I completely agree.
Okay, and, I thought you were about to disagree with me, and I was about to be, like,
I completely agree. I have gotten very little out of Anders personally, and I honestly think, I mean, that's not something that I would, like, super critique, because to me, a huge part of it is, like, just keep seeing Neil McDonough. Like he doesn't, like, I can't, like, divorce myself and just be like, yep, here he is doing his thing.
Anders, everybody.
Yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't, like, he hasn't done anything bad. His performance is good. He's doing what he needs to do. And especially because he isn't the shepherd, he's the shepherd's little bitch, that, like, I think he's doing it right. But I just keep seeing Neil McDonough, who I've seen do this kind of role quite a bit.
But also, we've seen him do the role of, like, Sheidheda that J.R. Bourne fulfills, too.
Yeah, J.R. Bourne's awesome.
I'm a fan.
Yeah. And I to be clear, also, I think that what made him so good this week is playing him off of Murphy, who, you know, is, you know, if you think about, I mean, he's had so many different roles, right? But, like, he is our manipulator. He is the one who can, like, get on people's nerves and understand people and work people. And so
he's being worked.
Yeah. So him being, you know, manipulated, and they're sort of, well, obviously their chess match, I thought was very interesting. And again, I think the one thing I would say is I wish it had ended a little bit better. The same thing with, like, the entire Sanctum storyline. I just feel like it kind of just, like, ended, and it ended with, like, what we had seen in the promo the week before. Like,
so that's my only complaint is I feel like that Sanctum is where the pacing issues have kind of really been bugging me. Is kind of too strong a feeling, but it's one of those things where I'm like, the conversation between Nelson and Sheidheda only took place last week.
Yeah.
And then again, their whole monologue of, like, depose the queen, get power for yourself. And then, so I'm like, Nelson and Nikki teaming up had to wait a week for this, like, for it to happen here. And then even then, they're only on the same side truly in their alliance at the end of the episode. So it's going on again to next week. It's just like, let's compress this maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's complicated, honestly. Like, I don't have an easy answer of how to fix some of these pacing problems, because, like, on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying, where it's like, we ended last week with it being like, Nelson and Nikki are gonna take things over together, and it still took another entire episode to get there. We still don't even, like, by the end of this episode, we don't really know what they're doing, right? But that being said, like, last week I was like, I don't know if I buy Nelson doing this or whatever, right? And so, like, they had this episode and made me understand Nelson more and where he's coming from, and I thought the scene with his dad was great, and the way they connected that with Amori was great.
Yeah.
So, like, I like all that. I think I think the reason that we're struggling so much with this stuff is that it's like, yeah, okay, you did a good job with Nelson. Where the fuck is Clark? Like, you know, like, that's the thing. Like, I'm not gonna say that, like, the Nelson stuff wasn't interesting. The Murphy stuff was good. The Maddie and Jackson scene I found very fascinating and thought it was cute. But, like, where the fuck is Clark?
Thank you for finally getting a therapist on the 100. Apparently Jackson's been one the whole time. Cool. You know what they say, a therapist needs a therapist, and a therapist in a bunker definitely needs a therapist, so there was no one there for Jackson.
If only he could have helped Octavia a few of those times. Or Jasper. But yeah, I mean, so again, like, I liked that scene.
Yeah.
And I understand that there, you know, so, like, this was supposed to be the episode that Eliza was supposed to direct. And so I'd say on the one hand, that's probably from the design of the episode, they probably weren't going to have very much Clark in it so that Eliza could take the reins. But if people don't know the behind the scenes stuff, she had a miscarriage. So, like, I can't, like, be mad at the show. Like, she had shit going on, and who knows what's going on with Bob. But it just feels weird to be going into the final season, halfway through the final season, right? Almost. and we're spending almost like an A plot on Nelson, and meanwhile Clark gets like half a second. And I
hadn't thought of it like that, but you're absolutely right.
Like, it's weird. I don't know how, and like I don't need to like. And then I'm struggling with things like Nikki, where I'm like, man, they really still haven't given me any reason for me to give a crap about Nikki. But also, I don't want them to spend time on making me give a crap about Nikki.
She wants revenge, but she also wants to live in the castle.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Again, like Nikki is at her most interesting when she's like, taunting Emori.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
And that's not like sustainable. Like, I don't want her to be like, I might kill you, like for all of next episode. But I think we're going to have that.
Well, next episode, something special.
Right.
We'll talk about
not
that
next episode, next Sanctum episode.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, the stuff on Bardo, I would also sort of argue felt kind of slow. But I'd say overall, it was well utilized.
It was slow, but it was slow, but it was also like actually a new combination of characters. Yeah. And because of that, it felt fresh enough to propel things forward and make me want to see more of that.
Yeah. I think that the reason to me things worked better overall on Bardo is even though things didn't change that much, it did have a ultimate payoff with the shepherd, which we'll obviously get to, and it had very emotional stuff with characters we care about. And I don't like, as much as like the Nelson thing existed, like I don't care about Nelson.
Yeah.
Right? So let's talk about Hope and Dioza first.
So I teared up really at the like they took my mommy after their I know that's also kind of a trope of like they fight and then they have emotions afterwards, but like how often do you really see that in a mother-daughter way?
Well, and I think that the whole point was that they weren't really like Dioza was doing it to get her to break down. I thought that it was a phenomenal sequence, and I think that it really showed, it shows the flip side of why I'm saying like I don't have easy answers, because they spent a bunch of season 7 on Hope, and I fucking love Hope.
I wouldn't want to sacrifice that at all. You're, and that's the thing where I was kind of like, as you were talking about Bardo, I was sort of like cringing a little bit. And to me, it's because even though this is the stuff that we're talking about first, this is not the problem I have with Bardo. Yeah. Like none of these relationships and interactions, none of the pairings of Hope and Dioza, two women and adorable people like that I love so much. Yeah. And then Echo and Octavia, who I've had ups and downs with, but overall
it's Gabriel, it's your problem.
It really... Yes. Yes, it is. Dr. Santiago, you son of a bitch. I mean, we didn't podcast, like we said at the top, about 706. So I feel like I almost didn't vent my frustrations with his choice. Enough. And so the last thoughts I have about him are like, how dare you ask them how your friends are doing? How dare you say that don't hurt them? You got them into this mess. Yeah. And yes, it led to some really nice pairings and a really good scene, especially when they all come out of their cells and they're like, we will fight in your war. Like, that was a great moment. Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. So that's, I think, to me, that was a surprising change of direction. Not necessarily surprised. Like I wouldn't have started the episode assuming that's how we'd end the episode, right? Whereas obviously we knew where the Sanctum thing was going. Yeah. So like I thought that stuff with the 4 women and leading that to them all working for Bardo or the disciples, I thought was really interesting, and also like nicely builds off of the Dev stuff and the Orlando stuff. Orlando's not dead, guys. I don't believe it. But like. And they also acquired Gabriel, right? So, and on the same episode, they got Clark. So it's like the disciples got everything they wanted this week. Yeah. So now, like, what are they going to do with it? And I think that to a certain degree, Sanctum is having to take it slow so that disciple stuff can catch up And the big thing they did to try to, make a big step forward was the reveal of Cadogan as the shepherd. I will say for maybe like the 8th time in this season who Bill Cadogan is again, in case anybody doesn't remember. Bill Cadogan created the Second Dawn, which is why there was the Second Dawn thing on his
the
little
Phoenix.
Yeah. Well, the logo I meant.
Yeah,
on his cryo chamber. And he believed the world was ending. He created the bunker that Octavia ended up in, and clearly he utilized the bridge to get here. I think that the most interesting revelation, as someone who we knew this was coming, right? As podcasters, to me, the most interesting thing is that he's not dying or something, or at least not obvious. He'd been woken up throughout. He's just kind of in stasis, so he's waiting for the final war. Basically,
yeah, he's just I need to be around and in fit shape to fight. And in some ways, the thing is that I almost gathered a little bit of maybe annoyance of him towards Anders.
Yeah.
Of you again? Why do you keep waking me? This isn't important. Fuck off. And also call me Bill. It's almost, I kind of like the thing of him not being this grand shepherd. He's I'm Bill. The last war. Yeah. So anyway, yes, maybe that to me is kind of another reason why I feel the pace is a little weird. The pacing's off. Is because we've been sitting here for episodes talking so Cadogan is the shepherd, so he's going to show up eventually.
And that's the thing that happens when you're...
when you're smart.
Well, no. When you're very tied into a show and you're talking about it with the community for a long period. And it's also kind of what you want, because you don't want it to be some crazy swerve that doesn't make any sense. You want
Game of Thrones. No. I mean, foreshadowing is a good thing.
Yeah. And I don't think they took it too long with it. I think it was I'm glad that they honestly did it now. And I think it's going to be very important, obviously, for the prequel episode next week.
Yes. It's a good transition.
Yeah. We haven't talked really about Echo and Octavia.
I figured we'd kind of save that for Love Boat Mini.
Love Boat? Really? I wasn't gonna.
Okay.
Oh, because of Bellamy?
Yes.
Because of Bellamy? Okay.
Bell Bottom. Yeah.
Bell Bottom. I thought you were talking about Octavia and Echo.
Now, Kiss. I was going to just kind of say, in terms of waking Cadogan halfway through, this makes sense. On our podcast, we talked about how few episodes can Bob be missing from and still make it feel okay.
Yeah.
And I said he needs to be in half of the episodes.
Yeah.
Next week is 708.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's not going to appear. Maybe there'll be
maybe
a surprise
at
the end
or something.
Because he's not dead. Speaking of Orlando not being dead, Bellamy's not dead.
Yeah.
So 709, he, in my opinion, needs to start being in a lot of the episodes, for significant periods of time.
I agree.
Even C-plot, but he needs to be plot.
Yeah.
And now Cadogan also is there, and it's just kind of...
We'll see. I mean, and it's... So if we're going to talk about the Bellamy not really being dead, I can't imagine people are going to be particularly happy with Clark's reaction, honestly. I didn't think it was particularly... It was weird.
It was underwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Octavia
and
Echo,
we keep almost talking about them.
Yeah. It was interesting. I felt like there was a lot of meta going on in this episode between Jackson bringing up Bellamy making the bad choice of pushing Maddie into taking the flame. They had Octavia talk about how she shouldn't have beaten up Bellamy, which I know is... So these are all things that people have complained about within the fandom. Obviously, people have said, why didn't you ever show us the ring or the beginning of Echo and Bellamy's relationship? I find it kind of hilarious they showed it to us now when we've been starved for Bob for so long.
Yeah, people. Speaking of fandom, negative reaction. Yeah, I can't. Well, that's not going to be positive.
Can't imagine people would be super excited that we got him back for one scene and it was him and Echo
and their first kiss.
Yeah, but obviously, I think that informed Echo's performance here. So I do think that Tassia did a really good job displaying the emotion here, but I don't know that I've fully bought where Octavia was coming from, and that she got to the level of being you're my family. That felt like a step too far. I understand that Octavia like has a kinship of sharing the grief over Bellamy, and that she's evolved as a person, and that she would want to comfort her. But at the same time, I'm also like, the fact that this is about Bellamy being dead and Octavia isn't the focus of the grief is kind of weird. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I guess in theory she's known for longer or whatever, but like,
for someone who was like catatonic and like withdrawn and fighting because of her grief, she's very evolved in her emotions now, and it feels a little odd, I guess.
I think that it would have been more powerful if there was more conflict within that scene, and if that by the end of it they were able to reconcile and, you know, bridge the gap because of their grief, right? And that they were able to show Octavia's grief just as much, and that they were, you know, they acted out their anger towards each other through their grief, and that ultimately is what brought them together. Like, there could have been something there that I think would have been.
I don't disagree with you, but the fact is that we had a display of anger and grief and like coming together with Dioza and Hope.
Yeah, and I think they should have. Then
I
feel like they were already trying to parallel that, right? Because they did have the like crying hug scene in both of them.
They did,
like, and like both of them were about them, all four of them deciding that like we're gonna, you know, work with them or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that they were already trying to parallel that, and and that like it's a different kind of like, that's the whole point. It's like, yeah, okay, like they're actually grieving. Hope is grieving like the loss of her childhood or whatever. Like I think that would have been, and like Dioza had such specific stuff talking about her past and stuff. Like I think it would have been different enough that it would have made.
It's really about regrets.
Yeah.
Like, this entire episode is about regrets. It's Gabriel's regret of maybe turning them or like putting them in danger to a, like, that's a small degree. It's the regret of Dioza for like accidentally abandoning Hope. Abandon all hope. And
I think Amori
and Nelson. Thank you. I forgot their names for a second. Don't know how. Sanctum put me to sleep. No, it really is. It's really just like versions of that. Of what would I do if I could do it all again?
Yeah.
So they're really playing with it. Like, they're going kind of hard on that theme-wise here.
Yeah. And I think that I guess the thing that is like, it feels kind of cheap to me that given all the years of build up and back and forth about Echo versus Octavia, that we just kind of resolve it because
they unite over Bellamy's
because Octavia, it's not even they unite. Like, Octavia just is like, yeah, I feel bad for you now because Bellamy's dead. Like, you know, I feel like it should have taken like they just were like decided Octavia's evolved now, and so she doesn't hold grudges, and I guess that's earned.
I think it is actually.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more I feel like, if anything, hers is the character that's followed the most logical path of development.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, it jumping to we're family now. Like, that still feels like she's not a different human being. Like, you know, like it's that just felt like a step too far. Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree with you. But yeah,
even if they could have started it with Octavia is evolved now, she tries to reach out, and Echo like fights back and like tries to pull Blood Reina out of her, kind of thing. Ooh. And I think that would have been interesting. More interesting than what we got is all I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like we are coming off as feeling, okay, I'll speak for myself. I feel like I'm coming off as being more negative about this episode than how I felt during watching it and immediately after.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed watching this episode a lot.
Yeah.
And overall, I liked the pieces.
Yeah. And
maybe where it doesn't like succeed all the way is how it came together and how it fully relates to the rest of the season.
If I'm not being clear, I think this is a good episode. I think I'm just like, we're trying to be critical, right? So it's like, I really enjoyed everything with Murphy and Sheidheda. I think that this is a really interesting episode for Amori.
Yeah.
I think that the Hope and Dioza thing is like just perfection.
That to me is just like the A+ of this episode. Like, that to me is those scenes get an A+.
Yeah.
And therefore, whatever the rest of the episode's average is just like lifted
boosted
by that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, or we want to wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. I feel like this is one of our longer reactions in a while. We're out of the podcasting swing of things.
All right, guys. So if you want to be part of the even longer audio podcast that we do later in the week, you can send us feedback a myriad of ways. You can leave us a comment down below on the YouTube video. You can go to the100podcast.com and there's a contact us form there. Or you can just email us directly at the100pod@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at the100podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. And may we meet again.
May we meet again.